Vic Friedman, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast today, man. It's really great to see you. I know that we didn't really get a long intro at first, but I did a little bit of research on your story, and I saw you on a different podcast, and you got a hell of a story that I'm excited to unravel with you and just kind of get to know you a little bit before we get into all the details. But like I said, I really do appreciate your time today and coming on the My Next Move podcast.
Oh, appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. So I kind of want to just like get right into it. Like, I don't know too much about you. I know we just met, and I would love to hear a little bit about your story. Like, I know you're in Tampa now, but are you from here originally, or where did this all take place?
Yeah, so my story begins actually in high school is where I met my best friend, now business partner, and we were up in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And we went to colleges in different states. He went to University of Miami. I went to a small school out in California, and we were home for summer vacation trying to figure out what we were going to do to make money. And we had always been brought up to follow the more traditional career path, work hard in school, get a good grade, into college, get a degree, get a job, grow the corporate ladder. And that didn't seem appealing to us. And this was kind of, almost 20 years ago. So entrepreneurship wasn't as common of a pursuit. It was seen as kind of risky. And his mom had a beat-up cargo van, and she said, why don't you guys take the van and do something with it, and you guys could be college hunks who haul junk. And we laughed about it at first, and then we were like, actually, that's a catchy name. Yeah. So put flyers in the mailboxes. The phone started ringing. People had a need for the service. And I describe ourselves as a 20-year overnight success because today we've got over 200 franchise locations around the country, over 5,000 employees. Wow. So it's certainly blossomed, but those early days were pretty humble beginnings.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. That's so crazy. Just like it all starts from the small story to what you guys got now. I saw it as like you guys now have 150 trucks, probably more now. I saw a video on your Instagram, but over 150 trucks, 37 states. Is that right?
Yeah, so 37 states, actually 200 franchise locations, and close to 2,000 trucks now. So
Holy
yes, it's certainly blossomed.
Yeah, you guys are blowing up, right? Or how long did that? So you started out with just one van, just you and your business partner, right?
Yep.
And this was back in D.C. You moved back from.
Yeah, so we were back in Washington, D.C. Actually, 2003 was the cargo van summer. So I'm certainly dating myself. 2004 was the business plan we wrote, and we entered into an entrepreneurship competition. Gave us a lot more confidence in the idea. It ended up winning first prize. Yeah. And when we graduated, we got regular jobs briefly and said, you know what? I remember emailing Omar, what's our timelines for starting this business on a year-round basis? And he emailed me back, all capital letters, my timeline's right now. Let's do this, exclamation point. So, we quit our jobs, and some people were pretty skeptical about it. They were like, you're going to quit your jobs to do what? Haul junk? And the company's going to be called College Hunks. Are you throwing away your college degree to start a trash business? Is that really a good idea? And so we try to use that doubt and skepticism as a fuel for our fire to prove the doubters wrong.
Yeah, I love that.
And, when we first started, we were doing all the work ourselves. So driving the trucks, answering the phone, hauling the junk. And I always tell the same story, but we bought an 800 number because we wanted to look like a bigger business than we were. And we put it on the back of the truck, but it was still routed to our cell phone. So people would call to complain about erratic driving, and I'd be in the driver's seat apologizing, saying, listen, we don't condone that type of driving. Yeah. We'll fire those guys when they get back to the office.
And it's just you behind the wheel.
Yeah, and I'm like waving to them as they drive by. So probably fired ourselves like 3 or 4 times that first summer, and actually started to burn out a little bit because it was exciting at first, but it was like, man, this is exhausting. There's only so much that the two of us can do in 24 hours. And one of our mentors, he recommended to us a book called The E-Myth Revisited. It's by a guy named Michael Gerber.
Okay.
And the key takeaway in that book was learn how to work on your business, not just in your business, creating systems and processes so that the business can scale, having a long-term vision. So when we read that book, it felt like it was written about us. And we thought to ourselves, okay, if we're ever going to have another truck, let alone another location, we've got to start documenting how do we do everything. And that became the foundation of eventually us being able to franchise the company, which is what we're doing now.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, man. I feel like just working all the hours you had to, how many jobs do you think you could get done on a daily basis?
Well, one truck, we would do maybe 5 to 7 jobs. When we first started, we were strictly doing junk removal. We were hauling people's unwanted items, charging a fee for it, and taking it to be recycled or disposed or donated. And we've since then added moving services. So with moving, we could probably do 2 jobs in a day. If you think about, morning and afternoon, or if it's a longer move, then it's a full day or even multi-day. But junk removal is more of a faster pace, pick up and drop off. So with just the two of us, it anywhere, range from 2 to, 7 jobs in a single day. And, Omar would be on the truck Monday through Friday with one of our friends' younger brothers. I'd be on the truck, Saturday, Sunday with our other friends' younger brothers. And I remember waking up early in the morning and having to go empty the truck at the dump site, and you never get that smell out of your out of your
man,
brain.
That's crazy. So it did start out as trash, and it wasn't always like also the moving stuff. Because I remember like I've moved like 100 times over the last like 5 years. It feels like every year in college and every year after that. So it feels like that takes me hours to move. So I was wondering how the turnover was with that, if it was just you two, but if it was just the trash at first.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm a horrible mover.
Okay.
And that's why we tried not to do that at the beginning. But enough people kept asking us to do moving. And during 2008, 2009, when we started franchising, was also the peak of the housing crisis.
Yeah.
And so people weren't needing our junk removal services as much, and we were trying to figure out how to expand the pie to be able to do more business. And so we said, hey, look, we've got trucks, we've got labor, let's start doing moving as well. Thankfully, I was not on the truck at that time, because moving is a lot harder because you can't damage the items, whereas junk removal, if it breaks or damages, as long as you weren't planning to donate it, it's not a big issue.
Yeah, and that's such a smart business model because it's so high demand, right? It never stops. Like you're always going to have stuff to get rid of, whether it's trash or anything else just laying around the house. That's like a great model.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's not that innovative, right?
Yeah,
I think
still.
Moving stuff has probably been around since the Stone Ages, since they invented the wheel. They could move stuff, but I think what we did that's allowed us to be successful is we took a very simple concept, trucks and labor. We put a very creative wrapper on the exterior, the name, College H.U.N.K.S hauling junk, the colors, bright orange and green trucks. And then we put a very intentional focus on our employee experience and then ultimately our client experience. And that's the stake behind the sizzle. The brand is the sizzle, but then how people actually interact with the brand is what gets them to write a positive review or tell their friends about us, or repeat business. I call it the 3 R's: repeat, referral, and reputation.
Yeah.
And so we need that because we're not a subscription. People aren't using us every month.
Word of mouth,
it's
right.
transactional. So we got to do a good job if they're going to keep coming back.
Yeah, of course, man. You have great branding, I'm in the marketing space as well. So like, just I can see it on your shirt right now. Just like, it's so recognizable. It's just people are driving around the big trucks that you got going on. It's got to be cool just driving around Tampa or wherever you are and just seeing I started that.
Yeah, so it's funny, when we first had one truck, we would park it in different parts of the city to try to catch people's attention. And so people would tell us, I see your truck everywhere. What do you have, 5, 10 trucks? And we'd be like, no, we only have one truck.
Just everywhere.
And so we knew we had something there. And, it was part of our vision to be able to have our trucks on the road in every market. And what I always tell people, because I'll have friends text me sometimes, they'll be in a random city and see one of our trucks or one of our signs, and they'll text me a picture of it. I want the emotion that people have when they see that truck to know, at least for that moment, all is good. There's a brand that represents positivity, making a good impact, doing the right things. And so I tell our team members that, I tell our franchise owners that, so that when they go out and represent what the company does, they have that responsibility in mind. And ultimately that starts to manifest itself to actually happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You have such a great, you have a great mind for the marketing aspects. It really is branding and all. And obviously the reviews and word of mouth, because that stuff spreads quick, right? So I love the whole story of everything so far, but I want to kind of pivot back a little bit, because I remember you said something about in 2003 where you were trying to figure out those systems in place to scale. What was that like back in 2003? Because now obviously it's like the technology is way more advanced now, and like you can have any channel at your fingertips. What was that like to implement those systems? Like, were you reading books back in the day? Was there websites you were looking for?
Yeah. So, I mean, when we first started, it was as archaic as you could imagine. A clipboard with handwritten notes about the appointments. We did have cell phones. It was the Nextel Chirp cell phones. If anybody's old enough to remember those. We had the Garmin GPSs that we would stick on the windshield, and they kept falling off the windshield. So we were dealing with some pretty remedial technology, and social media didn't really even exist when we started. I think Facebook started in 04, 05, and so it wasn't really as mainstream as it is today. There wasn't off-the-shelf software. So, we've kind of evolved our business as technology has evolved. We're obviously not a technology company, but we describe ourselves as technology-enabled because we want to embrace the technological solutions and platforms that are out there that can help us deliver our service more effectively. So, when the iPhone came out, that was a big game changer. When social media came out, that was a big game changer. But in those early days, we kind of had to just figure it out. We had to make checklists in Excel, and Google Docs came out. So we were like, oh wow, we could do shared documents. So those were the type of things that we were doing. and just continue to evolve it. We did work with a software partner early in the early days to try to develop some scheduling as we look to try to franchise the company as well. And so those were some of the things that we did. But initially it was just writing checklists and then Excel sheets, and then it evolved to being able to adapt modern technology into it.
Yeah, that's crazy because like social media is so powerful nowadays, where it's like you can go viral and you can get your brand out there in almost seconds, right? But like back in the day, it almost feels like entrepreneurship was probably harder and scarier, right? Back in the day, or would you say disagree?
I would agree and disagree, because actually there was less noise vying for your attention.
Yeah.
And so back then, the bright orange and green trucks, the signs, they caught your attention and people took notice. We had an article that came out in the Washington Post probably a few months after we started the business, because one of the reporters thought the name was catchy. She wanted to know the story behind it. She wrote an article about it, and our business spiked like
really
50% that month. We would go to customers' houses and they would have the newspaper article clipped out on their counter, and say, "Hey, I read your article. This is why we called you guys."
Wow.
Well, now, I mean, there's the messaging and the content and the information is just so fluid that it's here and it's gone a split second later.
Yeah.
So it's actually harder probably now to capture people's attention than it was back then, when there was less, I don't want to say clutter, but just less communication channels than there are today.
Yeah, there's so much that's going on. There's also a lot of competition in every space, right? As soon as somebody's doing well, you can see that on the analytical side. Somebody's like, let me jump on this ship real quick, like the drop shipping or like the trading back in the day in the stock market. Like people are so quick to just like transition to that, and whoever has the best brand kind of wins. But it feels like it's only like for a short time. But I don't know. It's wild to hear the story of the systems back in 2003 versus like what we have going on now. But it's interesting to hear that you think it was a little bit easier back then because there wasn't so much noise. But did you see like more of a wide reach, or did it kind of stay centralized in Washington, D.C. for a while before you started branching out?
So our very first franchise owner was actually in Orlando, Florida. And then we moved our headquarters to Tampa shortly after we sold our first franchise, because we wanted to have a call center that would book the appointments for the franchise owners in the D.C. area at the time. And still, it was high cost of living, cost of office. So we moved down to Tampa in 2008. And I feel like we sort of saw the same thing in Tampa that, the whole country, maybe the whole world is seeing now, which was, a great market, a friendly, welcoming business community, awesome weather, decent cost of living, although that's kind of spiking, going up right now. Awesome airport to get in and out of. So we saw all those things, and, compared to what we were living and dealing with up in DC, we said, you know what, let's move our headquarters down to Tampa. So we kind of, because our franchise model is a service model and we're selling territories, it wasn't as dependent on kind of that concentric circle, retail model like the typical retail franchises. And we hit a tipping point probably 6 or 7 years ago. But prior to that, we were really just kind of adding 4 or 5 franchises a year, kind of really linear growth, struggling to figure out the systems and the tools. And then we had a breakthrough where all of a sudden we were adding 20, 30, 40 franchises a year.
Wow.
And that breakthrough, I think, was a combination of, getting better people in the organization that could help us scale, having more successful franchise owners that could vouch for the opportunity being a viable one that other people wanted to emulate and be a part of. And then, just that critical mass of momentum that can only happen with consistent effort and execution.
Of course. I'd love to get into more of that scalability and like how you kind of handled that. But I want to kind of gear back before we get into that, because I know it could lead to further things. I want to talk about the Shark Tank experience that you had. You were on the first episode ever of Shark Tank, is that right? Is that the
first episode of the very first season of Shark Tank. Yeah. The way we got on there was we were answering an ad in a magazine, INC magazine, that said looking for entrepreneurs to pitch a business idea for a TV show. And at the time, we just started franchising, so we said, hey, this could be a great idea to get our name out there. And we are actually going to go on and pitch a sister company. We were going to call it College Foxes Packing Boxes.
Okay.
The Sharks thought it was a bad idea, and I think they were right. But Robert Herjavec actually made us an offer. He wanted a percentage of College H.U.N.K.S. We ultimately turned it down. At the time, we didn't know these sharks were going to turn into television celebrities. Yeah, we didn't know the show was going to still be on the air 15 years later. But it was a great experience.
Absolutely.
It was kind of, intimidating, intense, but a great way to kind of, again, catapult our brand into the spotlight. And, it still reruns from time to time on CNBC, or people watch the digital streaming version of it. And so it's kind of evergreen. It lives there forever. So we're really glad we did that. It was great experience. Man. Yeah.
Did you see who were the Sharks at that time? Was it still Kevin?
Mark Cuban did not come on until I think the second or third season. So it was kind of the same that they have today, plus a guy named Kevin Harrington, who's actually a Tampa area entrepreneur. So it was Damon, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, who called us greedy pigs, by the way.
I saw you clap back at him on that little clip.
I did it. Well, he was kind of poisoning the room, and I didn't realize, because I'd never seen it before. The show didn't exist. I didn't realize that was his thing. That was his kind of persona. So I was kind of getting offended by how mean he was being.
Yeah,
and so
of course.
when he declared himself out, I said, "Hey, thank you. That means you get to stop talking, right?"
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
I heard a collective "oh" from the producer side of the room, and I was like, "Oh, that's going to make it on television for
that's
sure."
Good, yeah.
Had memes and Instagram reels existed back then, that probably would have been one of those things that everybody reshared. But it was Damon John, Kevin O'Leary, Barbara Corcoran, Robert Herjavec, and then this other gentleman, Kevin Harrington.
Got it. So it was like the main cast, but then it's crazy that you run the very first episode, man. Now it's exploded. I mean, it's impossible to get on there unless you have like this crazy technology nowadays or something like that. But it's cool to be the very first person on there. Did you ever see an uptick in that? Like, was it that popular enough? Like, did business start booming after that? Like, in marketing purpose?
At that time, I wouldn't say booming, but definitely it's created awareness, because a lot of people I've asked, hey, how'd you hear about us? Oh, that, I saw you guys on Shark Tank, actually, or we still can use that in some of our literature and our materials of credibility and kind of brand reputation, as seen on Shark Tank. And so
cool.
Those sorts of things, I think, have been the most valuable element of it.
That's awesome, man. I actually got to meet Kevin O'Leary one time working on the New York Stock Exchange for a while. He'd always come down there for business. He's a short guy. Pretty short guy,
yeah. At the time, they were sitting up in these high chairs, behind this big, tall countertop. They've since moved down to the lower, lower chairs.
More eye level, so it's less intimidating. That's crazy. So we talked about, I had to talk about that because that's obviously just such a cool experience. I love that show, so I wanted to hear your experience on there. But in terms of the scalability aspect of College H.U.N.K.S, like, you said you felt like you were at a tipping point of like adding 6 franchises and then all of a sudden you hit that breakthrough. I'd love to hear some of your advice. And I speak with a lot of people my age that are business owners, like really kind of just like figuring out which direction we want to go to. We're kind of in like that realm phase, we're 2, 3, 4, some people 5 years old in business. And it feels like a lot of people are kind of hitting that like burnout phase, how to scale. What's it kind of like in your experience, right? From that scalability, is it like it all snowball effects? Do you think it's all from the hard work you're putting in over those years, just staying consistent over time? Or like, what was like that? You're like, oh, it's happening.
Yeah. So, as I reflect back, I wish I could point to one thing, and I was certainly searching for that one thing when we were going through the grind phase. But that one thing really doesn't exist. I think that one thing is a combination of persistence and consistent execution, because there's a compounding effect that ultimately leads to momentum. Whether it's, trying to get in shape or whether it's trying to build a business, doing things, intermittently or inconsistently is going to not produce the results that you're looking for. And I don't think, there's very few business owners that say, I made more money faster than I thought I would, because most entrepreneurs get into business and very optimistic. That's why we're entrepreneurials, because we believe anything is possible. But then we get in there and reality sinks in a little bit, because it's taking longer, it's harder. You're not making as much as you imagined you would be as quickly as you thought you might be. And so a lot of people kind of jump off the track before they get to that breakthrough point. And, my dad used the analogy. He said, imagine you're trying to move a dresser, you can't run into the dresser or you're going to break. Yeah. But if you start pushing that dresser and it's, on a floor or surface, like, you can actually start pushing it, it'll move faster and faster and faster. But when you first start pushing, it's going to take all your energy and effort to get it to move even an inch or 2 inches. And so there's that flywheel effect, I think, component. And, every business is a little bit different. Every industry is a little different. Yeah. Every economy is a little different, because when we started franchising, like I said, it was the peak of the housing market crash. And then we got to ride the wave back up when things turned around. Yeah. And so that was certainly part of it as well. The conditions changed, but we had been dragging an anchor through the sand for 3 or 4 years and didn't give up. And maybe I think, made better business people out of us as a result. And then that's why we were able to take advantage of the upside when things shifted.
Yeah. I love that. I love how you're so consistent with it, and then you just like reap the benefits down the road. How long was that? About 6 years until it started really franchising out there to multiple states?
Probably. So we were in business in 2005 05. We started franchising in 08, and we really didn't see like a breakthrough in franchising until probably the past really 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
So it's really been a recent, breakthrough. That's why I describe us as, like I said, a 20-year overnight success. And it's reflecting back, it's it was a long road to get there, but well worth it. Yeah, and I will be honest, that there were it wasn't like I was 100% focused all the time. Like I suffer from a little entrepreneurial ADD. I call it, all damn day. The head is, the mind is running and you're thinking about other shiny objects or opportunities or, that maybe this could work or that could work. And I think, tempering that, allowing your creative juices to go, but tempering and focusing on, what's going to be the real engine that moves. Because every time we tried to shortcut the success or every time we tried to chase a new shiny object and took our eye off the ball that was already moving, it was like that ball that was already moving slowed down, and trying to start something new is going to take the same amount of effort to get it to move even a little bit. Yeah, even if not more. I kind of suffer from the shiny object syndrome too. It's always like I had an education brand and the marketing brand. I thought about starting a hat brand, and I was getting involved in Airbnb arbitrage. Next thing you know, I'm like failing at all of them. So I'm like, I got to just button all this up back to one thing, focus on that and scale. That seems to be everybody's advice that I talk to, like with mature business owners that have done really well. They're always talking about just niching down, get really good at one thing, and you can kind of scale from that. Because if you're the best in one space, somebody's going to want you more than if you're kind of good at 4 different things, right? Yeah, it's tempting to want to try to, be a mile wide, inch deep. It's harder to dig deeper, especially if you don't know 100% if it's going to work, as you keep digging, because there's those times where it's like, we haven't hit profitability yet, or cash flow's tight, or, we're not having the breakthrough, or we had a tough month or tough quarter or year. Yeah. And so, knowing to keep, or having the faith to keep going and keep executing on what's already starting to work or showing some promise versus trying to take, backtrack and go do something else, I think is, to your point, the key to a lot of people's success. Yeah. They're willing to just kind of keep going longer than other people are. Yeah, I love that. I love the advice. I love the consistency you had. And sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, I always say urgency of effort, patience for results. So like, I wanted to be more successful yesterday, the day before, the year before, but it doesn't always happen that quickly, but it does ultimately happen. And so having the urgency of the effort of, we got to get this stuff done, let's work hard, let's execute, let's scale, but recognizing that it's not going to happen tomorrow or even the next day. It's going to happen over time. It's going to be gradual and incremental. And then eventually you look back and you're like, wow, look how far we've come. Yeah. Were there ever like any year or like any certain point that you had some hardships that you were facing? You're like, damn, I don't know if this is going to, like any of those? Yeah. I mean, honestly, the 3 that stand out to me is when we first started franchising, because when we first started the business was the peak of the housing market, 05, 06. All we had to do was put a sign out and park a truck and the phone was ringing. Yeah. And then 08, we were selling franchises, but we were in a home service category. People were moving less. People's budgets were tighter. People were getting foreclosed on. They weren't hiring us as much. And that, like I said, felt like we were dragging an anchor through the sand. But in retrospect, I think it made us much better business people, much more resilient, gritty. We had to figure it out. I mean, we were even going door to door with our junk truck, knocking on doors and saying, hey, do you have any junk you want to get rid of? We'll give you a discount today. We've got the truck. We called it Operation Ice Cream Truck. We never did get the ice cream jingle on the truck, though. And so that was a tough one. COVID was tough, for everybody because nobody knew what the hell was going on. And in that moment, I was like, wow, we're going to lose everything we ever worked for. It's all going to go away. Damn. And so that was certainly scary. Thankfully, that turned around really quickly because there was, stimulus and this kind of post-COVID bubble where everybody was like out moving and spending, and it was crazy. So that turned into actually a business boom. But now we're kind of approaching a market, especially in our business, where interest rates are higher, housing market is tempering down. So how do we weather this storm? And we've got a lot of new franchise owners. We've sold over 80 franchises in the past 2 years. Wow. So they're in a very delicate, early stage of their business. We've got to help them weather it as well. And so, there's always going to be that roller coaster. I think having gone through those cycles now, I'm able to not panic as much as I did previously. I'm able to not allow fear to creep in or make, impulsive emotional decisions, but stay locked in with the team and, kind of weather the storm. Yeah, that's good. That's really refreshing to hear because this is my first setback year or two in business because 2020, 2021, everybody was booming. Money was everywhere. People were throwing money everywhere. And now 2022, 2023, it's starting to catch up, like how
expensive inflation was, things are overpriced, housing markets, interest rates, obviously. So people don't have as large as budgets across the board, whether it's small companies, large companies. So I'm like, why is this not as easy as it used to be? So I'm like, it's like those subtle doubts that you have, but then it's like, I'm reverting to like cold calling stuff similar to you door knocking. Like just gotta do what you gotta do.
We had a quote on our wall in the 08-09 time frame that said, in good times, everybody can win. In tough times, the resilient and scrappy win. And so, I think that mindset, that mantra is important to hold on to. Same thing, a year ago, 2 years ago, all we had to do to make the phone ring was pay for Google pay-per-click ads because, everybody and their mother was searching for a mover or a junk hauler because they were doing stuff to their home or they were selling or buying a home. Yeah. Those searches have diminished and the costs have gone up. So all the things that we talk about we should be doing, truck parking in visible locations, signs, following up with realtors, networking, following up with past clients, all the things that take effort that maybe we got a little bit complacent about when things were really easy, we should be doing them. We should have been doing them then, but we should definitely have to be doing them now. There's no option.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy to bring up the Google ad clicks because that's like something that my company specializes in. My business partner is from Google. I think we talked about that, but if we didn't, he's been at Google for 5 years, currently in the process of transitioning over, but the equity that they hold, he's just trying to make sure he gets a hold of that. But it's crazy like how expensive some of these, you really need to have a strategy for that stuff because there's so many competitors in the space like we talked about. So you have to like make sure that your impressions and your clicks are optimized correctly or your keyword searches aren't hitting like something that's like $16 per keyword because everyone's trying to move, like you're saying. So if you're just looking for moving services, you're gonna be spending tons of money when it's just kind of just like wasted money where it could be tailored towards something a little bit more broad, more on brand for yourself. But so much competition in the space, like you're saying, it's a lot more expensive than just like a couple dollars will give you a couple thousand clicks, right? But
yeah, that's right. And actually, what's funny is, back when we first started was right around the time that AdWords was even a thing. So we, back then you could pay, 5 cents for a click and, it was like an ATM machine. You just keep throwing money at it and it was raining leads. That's awesome. That's obviously changed dramatically.
Yeah, the scaling is crazy. You can either focus on the paid media side or you can focus on the organic side of content and just hope something sticks. It's crazy. Like the consistency, it's similar to building a business with your marketing strategies nowadays. It's like you really have to be consistent and outpace everybody else because everything is just all about either being outbid or having the better brand. It's really crazy.
Yeah, we kind of think of things in 4 different buckets. Get found, which is, people that are actually searching for what we do. Yeah. Find them, which is kind of getting out there and trying to be where somebody is when right before or right at the time that they are thinking about moving or getting rid of stuff. Yeah. Building the brand, which is, things like this or networking or, putting signs out, what have you. And then loyalty. Yeah. So cultivating relationships with our prior clients and creating those repeat referral, reputation reviews and so forth.
Yeah, that's huge. So would you say that most of your day-to-day, I know you do a lot now, I did a little bit of research. I saw you on like stand-up comedian, I saw also a movie I want to talk about as well, but is your main role at College H.U.N.K.S now kind of just like overseeing everything with like the strategy and not branding it out there, but also like running those, why am I losing the word right now? Franchising.
Yes, thank you. So, I've evolved my role. Both Omar and I have evolved our role into what we call the visionary seat, where we're setting the long-term vision, the strategy, the culture. We're cheerleaders for our team members. We're providing the resources and breaking down the barriers for them to be effective at their role. Yeah. And then we have somebody who his title is brand president, Roman Cowan, who is what we call the integrator to our vision. So we hold him accountable to the company metrics, and he's more talented and more prepared to handle the day-to-day nuances of running a business of our size as it is today. So it's much more enjoyable for me where I don't have to get as into the weeds, but it's also challenging to manage my schedule because I was just looking at my to-dos and it's kind of all over the place because we've got College H.U.N.K.S. We've got another business that requires a lot of attention called Trash Butler. Okay. We've got, some of these side quests that I'm doing like stand-up comedy and movie producing and acting. And then, I've got 4 kids, so I've got my family obligations. So there's a lot out there that we got to deal with. And I was just planning for 24 to kind of start time blocking when I'm going to be focusing on what categories, the family, the fitness, my health and wellness, my friends, the finances, the business,
Of course.
and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah, you got a lot, man. They always say more money, more problems, right? It's like, is that
Yeah, well, I think it just opens opportunities, and there is a tendency to get swept up in everything, and a lot of good books and a lot of wise people say saying no is the most critical piece of becoming more effective, because it protects your peace and it protects your time, and those are two very priceless elements that we have. And there's an element of addition by subtraction. So what can you remove off your plate that allows you to be more effective, more impactful? So I'm trying to start thinking of things in those terms as well.
Yeah, I love that. I really admire the fact that you're able to like bucket those things. So that, like having a company of that size to also be like, oh, I got to focus on family, and kind of almost like plan that out for 2024. So you're really aware of those times.
Well, right now I'm spinning all the plates like a madman, but my goal is to put them into buckets so that I can time block when I'm going to be focusing on which. So it's not like a hamster wheel in my head saying, oh, I got to go do this over here now.
Yeah. And here I am inviting you to come play basketball. There's no way that's coming, man. That's crazy.
We can put that on the possibility
we'll
list. On my fitness and health regimen.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome, man. So the College H.U.N.K.S story is really inspiring, man. Like coming from the very bottom, just from a van, to what you've done now, it's probably so satisfying to see what you've built, or is it kind of like overwhelming at sometimes? The one question I wanted to ask you is like, once it's kind of out of your control, like you have so many franchises out there, because it's your baby, right? It's your brand, it's your company that you planted the seed and watched grow. Is it like, do you ever feel like, I wonder if like how it's going over there in, California or Texas or one of those locations that you have like none of your hands in, except for maybe talking to the management team every now and then? Or how is that like, does that feel weird? Or
yeah, it is kind of surreal to think about the business is functioning without me pulling every lever in it. And we get a report daily on the metrics of where we are to goal. We get a refresh when we meet with Roman, and we do what we call a same page meeting, where we're talking about the key metrics in each of the markets, and challenges, opportunities, anything that we have ideas about. So I'm still plugged in. What I'm trying to avoid is what I call seagull management or seagull leadership, meaning I don't want to fly in, crap everywhere, and then fly back out, and everybody's like, whoa, what the heck was that? Who was that guy? So I want to be mindful that I'm not like that angry chef that's coming in and sticking his finger in the soup and be like, not enough spice. I got to trust the team that we've got in place to carry forward the vision, the values, and the systems, and continue to enhance the systems. Now, I'm going to still be a cheerleader. I'm going to still be somebody who pushes and tries to hold accountable what we're doing. But I got to, be disciplined enough to not try to take the reins of the steering wheel or whatever that other people are driving. Yeah,
that's so fascinating. It's got to be such like a crazy feeling to just come in and see that all over the world. So it's really kind of just like looking at the numbers and seeing like where you have to focus your time more so.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I don't want to keep run to just fires that need to get put out, but understand what the priorities are. We have a strategic planning process that we go through. Like I said, we have kind of a cadence of meetings where I come up with my crazy ideas, but instead of texting it to the team as soon as it hits my idea, I write it down, and then during the same page meeting, we go through my list of ideas and we decide what we're going to try to pursue or what we're going to leave on the shelf. And so elevating myself to that point kind of felt almost like entrepreneurial nirvana for a little bit, because for so long I was getting pulled in every direction, employee drama, franchisee frustration, and I had to try to put out those fires myself. And being able to scale success as opposed to putting out fires, or what I like to say, playing to win instead of playing not to lose. That's such a different mindset and framework, and probably could have had that mindset from the beginning, but it's really hard to when you're just trying to get things going. Yeah,
of course. It's crazy you say that, because I spoke to this guy named Keith Dunleavy. He's actually located in D.C., but he's the founder and CEO of Inovalon, and he's worth billions and billions of dollars now because he kept so much equity in his company. And he was always telling me, we had a meeting for like 30 minutes one time. I had the opportunity to speak with him about like growing business, like getting his advice. And one of his biggest pieces of advice on scalability was make sure that you focus on your internal team, because that's going to be the thing that's going to help you scale, exit, whatever you want to do the most. Because if you have a really good team helping you scale, it's going to be way more valuable and way more beneficial for you than you trying to do every single thing. So kind of sounds similar. Like you're just hiring like standard procedures of a lot of people in there that know what they're doing. You're hiring really great talent in order to be successful in multiple locations.
Well, yeah, I mean, without a doubt, the people is the most critical and the most difficult part of business ownership. And so getting the right leaders is the most important part. And then having the right framework of standards, or what we call our core values, that then help determine who are all the other people that we invite into the organization, the franchise owners, the frontline employees, the hunks, who are going into people's homes. What do they, embody to ensure they're a positive reflection of what we want the brand to stand for? And so, it's not easy, but what we like to say is that, culture drives the behavior drives the results. And so, having the core values, having a company purpose, having a framework that attracts good, talented people. They got to be, top performers also. They can't just identify with the values, but they got to be able to, perform in the business. But being able to attract people that fit with the values and can perform, it's like rocket fuel. Once you get enough of those people, then that's the thing starts to sing. But that's something else, is the team dynamics. I've gotten pretty involved in trying to inject, a foundation of what we call trust, healthy conflict, commitment, accountability, and results. It's a framework from Patrick Lencioni. He wrote a book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I think that is so relevant because you can see how that pertains to sports teams and businesses just the same.
Oh, wow. It's crazy. It's crazy to hear a lot of people that are successful in your shoes right now all have, I don't want to say the same, but very similar piece of advice when it comes to scaling like that. Because I keep going back to that word scaling, but it's just because that's kind of like the phase that I'm in. A lot of the business friends that I've developed over time, it's we're in that scale phase. It's just, how do we get there? Because we're in that limbo of 2022, 2023, 2024 most likely, until there's a next cycle. Because you're saying, it's always a business cycle. So,
have you read the book Traction?
Have not.
Familiar with that one? That was so we read the E-Myth Revisited early on, and then when we read the book Traction, that was kind of the next big light bulb moment for us, because it gave us the framework and kind of blueprint for scaling a business from a growing small business to one that could reach new heights, and it gives kind of the structure to planning and to data and to process. And so I would certainly recommend that one to you and the listeners as well. It's based on a model they call the entrepreneurial operating system. And there's a lot of different ones out there, as long as you have a framework that you operate the business on. And that's why you say you've probably heard a similar message from other business owners, because, there really isn't, like I said, a secret formula. It's, I think Tony Robbins says if information was all we needed, we'd all be billionaires. We'd all have six-pack abs, because, the info is out there and how to do it is out there. But it's really about taking that info and then executing on it that really makes the difference.
Yeah, of course. That's great, man. I feel like we've talked a lot about College H.U.N.K.S, but you have so much more that you're working on, it sounds like, as well. You have the other business, you're an improv. I really want to talk about that. And then also I saw Bezos, a movie that you produced or you're in, or what's kind of the story there? I don't even know how to unpack that.
Yeah. So I met a gentleman, Armando Gutierrez. He's one of the owners of the Tampa Yankees minor league baseball team.
Okay.
And he also happens to make movies, kind of lower budget movies, but he always figures out a way to weave a public figure or recognizable theme or name into the movie so that it'll sell. And I was at one of the Yankees games with him here in Tampa, and he was telling me about this script he acquired, a biopic about Jeff Bezos. It's going to be the first movie ever made about Jeff Bezos. And did I want to be a part of it? Did I want to help produce it? Did I want to act in it? And so I read the script, and I said, this is an entrepreneurial story. I've done a bunch of, unscripted reality TV. This would be kind of fun to stretch my comfort zone, to be in a movie, be part of, sharing one of the greatest entrepreneurial success stories, startup stories ever told. So we filmed it back in, it would have been summer of 21, and it just came out this past year in
Really?
January of 23. So it's available on Amazon Prime and all the streaming networks. Called Bezos: The Beginning. It was my acting debut. I played the role of Shel Caffin, who was the first employee that Bezos ever hired to come work for him in the garage out in out in Seattle. And so great experience being a part of that. And the way I equate, the movie making or the stand-up comedy I did at the Tampa Improv, I call them sort of side quests or, stretching of the comfort zone initiatives. Some people want to run in a triathlon or run a marathon or hike a mountain. Those aren't really bucket list items for me, but making a movie sounded kind of cool, sounded fun to be a part of. It was on brand with my entrepreneurial story, and so I went with that. And then stand-up comedy just seemed scary as crap and something I could never imagine doing. And I heard about this CEO Comedy Challenge, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm always preaching to our team about stretching their comfort zone. So I had to perform a 12-minute set in front of a 300-person audience at the Tampa Improv, and I said I tell people I'm glad I did it. I'm glad it's over. I don't think I'm going to do that one again.
You don't think you'll keep with it? Was it tough? Like, you get some laughs?
And we definitely got laughs. Once I heard the first laugh, I had my set list, and so I prepared it and practiced it enough that once I heard the first laugh, I was kind of in the flow and in the zone of things, like playing basketball, where you're not even thinking about what you're doing. You're just in the flow of it.
I was going to say, if you have a script, you kind of feel like you're going to like follow that, and it kind of messes it up, right? Like, even coming in here, I did a little bit of research on your story and stuff. Didn't know too much because I feel like if I planned about it, it wouldn't be as natural of a conversation, you know? Is that kind of the similar thing with improv?
Yes. So this was stand-up comedy, not so much improv. So we had it was at the Improv, but we had our set list. There was like certain themes that we would talk about, and I kind of had my setup, my punchline, and what we call the throwaway line. And so I kind of just followed that arc on each piece.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine getting up there. I feel like I would freeze up, but
yeah.
So you also, there's a couple other things that you've been featured in a few articles, that mostly for College H.U.N.K.S, or is there?
Yeah, no. So, over the years, we co-authored a book, Effortless Entrepreneur.
Right here, man. Right here, right?
You got a copy of it there. And that story is, we were at an entrepreneurship conference, and one of the speakers said, anybody who's ever written a book always says they wish they did it 10 years earlier. So start writing. Mm-hmm. And so Omar and I went to the bar afterwards, and we were like, well, I guess we got to write a book. And we were like, what should we write about? And so we said, well, let's write, what is it that we wish we had learned in high school and college that, now having been in business for 5 or 6 years, that we've learned kind of on the job and through mentors and other books. So that was kind of the way that we approached that book. I read it recently. It's been about 10 years since we wrote it, so I am glad I did it 10 years ago and didn't wait. I would say 90% of it's still relevant. It's kind of a lot of what is it that we wish we had learned that we were now applying into our business. And so we've done that. We've done Undercover Boss, the reality show where the CEOs have to go into disguise and go work. So we just did that recently, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. And more. We talked about the spinning plates. Mm-hmm. More going forward, I'm going to try to start saying no to some of those side things and stay focused on our College H.U.N.K.S business and our Trash Butler business, which I think have the two biggest opportunities to continue to make a great impact and continue to grow. Because if we 10X each of those from where they are to where we think they can go, that's transformational for everybody in the organization and the communities they serve as well.
Yeah, of course. I heard the 10X. Is that the Grant Cardone in you, or did you just say that?
I just said it. I think, if you can 10X anything, it's major.
Yeah, I know he's always like on that 10X rule, and he's famous for that. But so
I think his planes have 10X on them.
Yeah, really? That's crazy. Planes, plural. Yeah. That's crazy. So Effortless Entrepreneur, you said you wrote this 10 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. So you said principles still apply. And you have been with your business partner the entire time, right? No, there was never like any falling out. You don't hear that very often, right? It's like been 17 years, 18 years?
So we met in high school in 10th grade. We met in detention of all places, so it was kind of a funny story. But then we were best friends in high school, and then went to colleges in different states, but we would always hang out during summer vacation, and that's obviously when his mom offered up the beat-up cargo van for us to go start this business. Mm-hmm. And so we've been business partners ever since. And it is unique because you do hear stories about people wanting to start businesses with their friend or their family member, and at some point there's struggles and the relationship falters and the business falters too, and it's unfortunate. But we've been really grateful and fortunate where, I think the key to our partnership success is that our vision and values have always been in alignment. Mm-hmm. Even though we have complementary skill sets, he's a little bit more laid back, kind of creative, visionary. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit more obsessive, compulsive, nuts and bolts. Things got to be tight and right. Mm-hmm. And so I think we've been able to appreciate that about each other and, appreciate each other's strengths and also accept what each other isn't great at. Mm-hmm. And we kind of knew that about each other when we were friends in high school. And that kind of, allowed us to kind of accept that and embrace that as business partners. Mm-hmm. And, we have arguments and, we've cursed each other out, and in the early days we would have physical altercations, but we would always get right back to business. So there was never any resentment. We never took anything personal. There was never harboring any, we would just yell it out, talk it out, text, cuss each other out, and then, get right back to work.
Yeah. Cause the goal and the vision is always so aligned to that one end goal.
Exactly. And having that outlet's been awesome, because then we can celebrate the wins together. We can sort of, lock arms in the challenging times. When we have ideas, if we're not trying to, distract our team, we'll send each other, text messages about our ideas so we can have these, virtual whiteboard sessions at any time. And it's been also fun to kind of go through the life events together. His daughter and my daughter are in the exact same first grade class together.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy
That's
and surreal
cool.
to see that happen as well.
Yeah. And they friends? The
Oh,
daughters?
yeah. They do sleepovers
Hell
and
yeah.
write each other letters. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
This is the next generation, right?
That's right.
The hunks,
The
the
future.
foxes. The
Yes,
foxes, right?
yes. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But yeah.
That's interesting, man. That's crazy to hear about. Is there, you talk about the trash butler service. Is that kind of complementary to the college hunks?
So
or is that...
trash butler is a very niche service. It caters to apartment complexes. So if somebody lives in an apartment and there's a long walk to take out the trash, we sign a contract with the complex itself where all the residents have to do is put the trash in front of the door, and then our butler takes the trash from doorstep to the on-site compactor. So it's a business-to-business contracted service. Recurring revenue. And we got into that because, we wanted to be in a business-to-business company. College H.U.N.K.S is primarily business to consumer. And so we had heard about this doorstep amenity and saw it to be a very fragmented industry. And we said, we can apply the same magic and best practices that have worked for College H.U.N.K.S in a, low barrier to entry, but high barrier to scale frontline labor business. We can apply that over here to trash butler. So we've done that. We originally thought they were going to be combined together, but we've since separated them. We've got a separate investor pool from trash butler that we've brought in. We brought in some private equity investors for that company as well. And so that's actually now the second largest provider in that doorstep trash butler valet amenity.
Wow.
And we service about 300,000 doors a night across the country.
My gosh, man. When did you start this?
That one started in 2012, 13 timeframe.
Okay, so
but that was one of those shiny objects that we kind of like put on the shelf. It was sort of like fluttering in the wind on its own.
Yeah.
And then around 2018, 2019, when we had our brand president in place at College H.U.N.K.S, we were able to sort of take our energy and focus and say, okay, let's put some more effort and money behind trash butler. Let's bring in some investors and let's try to make a go of this one as well.
Yeah, that's great. I got to hire that service because for some reason, whoever designed the pier house in Tampa, it takes me I timed it one time. It takes me 4 minutes to get to my doorstep to my car, and it's forever to take it to the trash chute. So
well, tell the property manager that you want trash butler because we have to sign it with them, and then they'll put it into your lease, and they'll charge you for it. But it'll be they'll probably upcharge what we charge them, but it'll be an income stream for the apartments.
Yeah,
it'll be an amenity for all the residents. They'll all thank you.
Yeah, it'll be a win-win-win situation because it's crazy how far it takes to get to the parking garage. I don't know who designed that, but they got to fix that. So, I mean, we've talked about a lot, man. It feels like you said you're kind of like slowing down a little bit on the side projects, like the improv stuff, the movie. I got to check that out. You said that's on Amazon too, correct?
Yes. Bezos, the beginning.
Yeah. And I really want to read this book, so I appreciate you giving me this when you walked in here. I'm going to take a look at this for sure because the scalability. And you said the other one was Traction by
Gino Wickman is the author, and he's got a set of books that kind of complement that one, but that's sort of the first one that got his series started.
Yeah, interesting, man. Your story is so inspiring, man. I feel like that when you played basketball and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of values that I had back in the day, you learn a lot from just like playing a sport like that to like carrying over to business. I see a lot of those similar factors. I feel like you're up and running with, and your vision and the way that you are with your business. It's a really inspiring story, and I look up to you, man. It's a motivation of what you've done. Do you have any sort of like advice for anybody listening, for me, for any business owners from where you're at right now, kind of like looking back on something you were, 3 years in? Do you have any advice or biggest piece of advice as a business owner?
Have a vision for where you're trying to take the business. And then, as I said earlier, the urgency for the effort, but the patience for the results. Don't get discouraged. Surround yourself with good people, mentors, peers that, some accountability, mentorship groups that can help you along the way. Yeah. And enjoy the work. Don't feel like it's just, you're trying to get to a certain destination and thinking, hey, as soon as I can get to this destination, I'll be okay. Because I can tell you the goalpost keeps moving.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's always got a bigger boat. Somebody's always got a bigger plane. So no matter where you get to, you're going to still be looking forward. The only person maybe not doing that is Jeff Bezos or, I just read that Ken Griffin from Citadel is building $1 billion property down in South Florida somewhere. So,
crazy.
There's always going to be somebody who has more. There's levels to everything. So I think it's really about, in my view, what I call self-actualization or maximizing your potential. So maximizing the potential of your idea, maximizing the potential of your skill set, of your leadership, of your people. And as you continue to do that, the fruits of all those efforts are going to bear themselves, and you're going to be able to, take that trip or, charter that plane or whatever and celebrate and have that fun. But if you're solely focused on that, you're going to get really discouraged and disillusioned. So that was more than one little piece of advice.
No, that's great, man. It all comes in due time. Everyone always keeps saying that. But like you're saying, the social media aspect of everything, it's like, hey, I made $1 million today, or like, I got this brand new plane, Lamborghini, whatever.
Yeah.
You're kind of like surrounded by that. It kind of like just like deters a lot of people away.
Yeah, I mean, I was equally as sucked into that, that visualization. I'm a visual guy, so you turn it on, you see all that stuff, and you think, well, how are they doing it? Why are they doing it so fast? And you got to remember, everybody first of all started at a different starting point. Not everybody started at the same line.
Of course.
Second of all, you don't know what else they have behind that sizzle, or what else they have behind that shining thing, or what they're trying to sell by presenting that. So, you got to take all that stuff with a grain of salt and just kind of focus on what you can control and what you're doing. And, some people have that overnight success. There are the tech unicorns that you read about, or the TikTok celebrities that go viral. I mean, you've had some experience with viral videos. So, some of that stuff does happen, but to create, I think, something, that's sustainable and creates a legacy and long lasting, you got to play what Simon Sinek calls the infinite game. You're building something for the long term.
Yeah, that's great advice, man. I really appreciate that. That's something I got to learn a little bit, pump the brakes a little bit, and just focus on one thing. Everybody keeps saying niche down, niche down, niche down, because you get better at one thing, it'll help you scale a lot more and be laser focused. But I really do appreciate your time today, man. Before I let you go and before we wrap everything up, the podcast, I know we just met, but it's called My Next Move. So I always have people come on and we talk about life stories, some hardships they faced, and my inspiration behind it all was the branding aspect of it, because I have Next Era trading, Next Era marketing, and then the My Next Move. I kind of wanted to keep it on brand. So I always ask people what their next move is to ultimately continue the success that they've been on. So what's your next move to continue the success that you've had over the last 20 years with College H.U.N.K.S?
Time blocking all the spinning plates that I got in the air.
Yeah.
That's my next move. I woke up at 1 a.m. last night. My head started spinning with the hamster wheel, and I started writing down all the different things that I'm involved in, all the different commitments I have, all the different things that I'm spending time on, and realized it's filled up a whole page of stuff. And so I said, man, if I could time block when I'm going to spend time on College H.U.N.K.S, when I'm going to spend time on Trash Butler, when I'm going to spend time doing podcasts, then it's not going to feel as out of control. So that's going to be my next move.
Yeah, I love that. Pocket up the time, man. You got a lot of things and a lot of value to bring. So you got to make sure that the time and the family and everything's taken care of. And I really admire that about you. It's crazy, man. You have such a cool story. I'm really motivated by what you've done and what you've accomplished. And I hope this intro right now can stem a connection where we can keep in touch in the future.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
Man,
Keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.